So, Renz, thanks a lot for coming on the Lexdiscuss podcast. So, anybody who doesn't know anything about you, would you like to give them a brief introduction about yourself and why did you chose to specialize in personal injury law and particularly in traumatic brain injury cases?
Okay. When I graduated from law school, I was mainly interested in tax law. So I took a job with an accounting firm, an international accounting firm in Houston, Texas, Arthur Anderson, which is no longer around. You may or may not know. But I worked there for a year in Texas, decided to come back to Utah, got a job in a small firm, handled my first injury case, and I really enjoyed it. Then a few years later, when I started my own practice with the help of my wife, one of the areas I decided to focus on was injury law. So I worked in injury, criminal law, and divorce. After about 3 years, I was liking injury law most of all. So I've focused on that. So for the past 30 years, that's been almost 99% of what I've done. So I really like it. And I think it's partly because my father died in a car accident. My wife's brother died in a car accident. So it has meaning for us. It's not just about making money. I believe it's not workable to do something just for the money. So this has meaning. We earn a living from it. That's how we got into it. And head injuries, I don't know that I ever just decided to focus on head injury cases, but they come up. Car accidents, slip and fall cases, they came up. I learned about them and gradually gained knowledge. And then 4 years ago, my wife suffered 3 strokes. So she has been recovering from a brain injury. And I've gained a lot of insight from that experience. You wouldn't know it to talk to her. She still seems she's very capable, but there are things she struggles with, like thinking of the right word. She doesn't know that 9 times 3 is 27. For basic arithmetic, she asked me those things. Now, there's some things that she's actually gotten better at, like proofreading. She's very, very good at reading legal documents, proofreading them, making suggestions. She's also great at legal issues, strategizing on the cases. But it's been, I've gained understanding about how people are affected by brain injury.
That's good morning. I'm sorry to hear about the personal misfortunes that you had to go through. But I think, these kind of incidences make you understand that life is just not about money. And that I think is silver line in all this that has bad has happened. In addition to these personal experiences, did you, especially in the early part of your practice, did you went through some, did you find a particular case or particular incident which kind of defined your practice for the future? Does any kind of incidents?
Well, let's think here. One case that comes up was I was in the National Guard, and I joined the National Guard to get my student loans paid off. And there was a fellow guardsman. He was attending a softball game at the Utah National Guard base near the airport, Salt Lake City, and a sudden gust of wind picked up a piece of plywood, blew it, landed on his wrist. So he had spoken with another lawyer who was a member of the National Guard. Wasn't very impressed with the case, but we did some research on it, and we found that gusts of wind at the airport were actually pretty common, therefore foreseeable. So since it was foreseeable, it wasn't just a random act of God. So I represented him on that in a federal tort claims act claim, and we got a great result. That was a memorable case that I really remember fondly and enjoyed.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting. You know, when we are looking at your profile, we saw that we shared a checklist, right, for screening traumatic head injury cases, right? So how do you come up with these checklists, or like how do you discover these checklists, and how do you stay updated on the or rest of the stuff that is going into the personal injury domain?
Now, the head injury checklist was something that a neuropsychologist gave me a long time ago, early on in my practice. So he thought it would be useful, and we've been using it to try to spot head injuries for over 20 years. And then there was a TMJ dentist, temporomandibular joint disorder dentist. And he came up with a checklist also. We combined them. So putting them together, we've been able to identify some brain injury cases, TMJ cases that we otherwise would have missed. They can easily slip through the cracks because a lot of most head injuries are what they call minor closed head injuries, but actually that can be, it sounds minor. It actually can be very serious with lifelong consequences, and they can get in the emergency room or by the family practice doctors. So if we lawyers who do this kind of work, we can use these checklists, we can spot a lot of them that would have otherwise gotten missed.
So when client counseling, you actually go through this checklist and see if he had gotten the proper care. That's the objective of the checklist. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The objective of the checklist is to see if there are certain symptoms of a head injury,
right?
Like sensitivity to light, sensitivity to noise. My wife had a stroke 4 years ago. She's still very sensitive to noise. So if we go in a restaurant, the noise level is high, she'll get a headache. But this checklist helps us to we talking to a client when the client first comes in, and we have them fill out the checklist and find out if they had these symptoms before the crash, are they worse now, and then we can get them referred to someone who can help them. That's the purpose of it.
Well, we saw that you did your JD from University of Utah. So what was your experience there?
Let me think about that for just a second. That's interesting. 3 years of law school is a long time. And my experience there, well, it's a lot of years of law. It's one day after another. When you first start that, it seems like it's going to be eternity. So it's just paying the price, passing all your classes so you can get out and take the bar exam.
That sounds quite fair. That's quite common actually. So since you initially work as the other law firms, and then you start law firms, so any experiences that you learned hard way that you want to share with young lawyers who want to start their own practice? How will it happen? How will market get clients?
Yeah, those are good questions. I hired early on. I hired a consultant to come in, teach me things that I didn't know, and the consultant taught me marketing ideas, and then I copied what other lawyers were doing, that was successful. One of the busiest lawyers that I knew at the time, he had a Yellow Page ad. So that was a clue. So I got a Yellow Page ad, and that's how I started my practice. And really,
That's how you started these days. But was the consultant worth it? Like the amount of money he or she charged, what was the money worth it?
Well, yes, the consultant was well worth it, and I've used consultants again periodically over the years. Well worth the money, yes, absolutely.
I think you had a good experience because a lot of people I interviewed, most of them did have a good experience. I guess I'm one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, I was a lucky one. Yeah.
Right. Now, coming to the main point of this podcast, right? So, generative AI for personal injury cases. So, what is your thought? I'm sure you must know about ChatGPT. So, what are your thoughts on ChatGPT so far?
Well, I use ChatGPT once in a while. It seems like it's getting really, when I ask it legal questions, it's very cautious now, and it'll tell me to consult a legal professional. Now, I use Google a lot.
Right.
For a while, Google was automatically listing AI results at the top. And I used some of those results in various projects that I was working on. The way they had it now is they ask you, do you want to have some AI results? You click a button if you want them. Now, since they changed it, I don't usually click the button. But when they made it available automatically, it was right there and I could use it. So I have used it there. I believe it's been helpful.
That's nice. So if somebody asks you, like, what do you think is the best use case for generative AI in personal law? What would be your thought on that?
It seems like it's most helpful on medical issues.
Right.
As you can imagine, personal injury law, medical issues, very important. Understanding and reading the reports. What does this mean? What does that mean? Finding out more about a particular condition. And that's for me so far, I think that's where it's been most helpful, the medical side.
Right. And that's a very common theme, I must say. Just to take the example of your checklist, right? So imagine that, there's a software, like if a human comes in, based upon the checklist, the AI can actually interact with the user, right? And on the basis of, I'm sure like by now, the checklist has to be implemented by a human, right? And that has to be, like, that person has to be skilled, right? So delegating that to an AI, right? Would that something that like make your life easier?
Yeah, I think it could make my life easier. It probably will. I'm a little bit of a Luddite. I tend to wait for technology to advance before I jump on board. Yeah. So, for example, I do not get the latest iPhone. I mean, I wait. Everybody else go through it, have the problem. Then I'll go along with it.
I learned from the other people's mistakes. There's a common code.
Yeah.
Just most of the lawyers are that way. But yeah, there are the advantages of that approach as well, because you minimize the risk. Right? By profession, we all are risk averse, right? Isn't it? And whenever you're trying something new, there is always an inherent risk getting on in, right? So yeah, so when we are thinking about having discussions with the personal injury lawyers, one of the questions that really I like to ask right now in the practice, what are the three most laborious and labor-intensive and repetitive tasks in your practice? What are the three most labor-intensive tasks right now?
Okay, let's start with ordering medical records. Right, medical bills and records takes time. When I was practicing law in Salt Lake City 13 years ago, my wife and I moved down here, and we had employees when we were in Salt Lake, and my employees ordered the medical records. I do it myself now. So that's one of the most labor-intensive projects, ordering the records, following up on the records, and then organizing the records, reading the records. So I imagine that could be automated. Maybe it has been automated. That's one. What else is labor intensive? Now, one of the parts of personal injury practice that I like is preparing what we call the demand letter or the settlement brochure letter. I used to have those all done by my paralegals, and since I moved down here and started doing it myself, I've learned a lot, and I've gotten better and better at it. And there is a company who presented at a seminar in St. Louis that I attended in September, and I think it's something like Even Up. But they're specializing in using AI to prepare demand letters. So my wife and I were looking for the right case, but we'd like to order one of their demand letters and then compare with one of ours. Do one of ours, see one of theirs, compare, and see how they measure up. What are the strengths? I'm thinking that probably the best result would be from combining both. At least going through, putting something together yourself, looking at what they did, and then put together the best of it to get the best result.
Absolutely. So a lot of our viewers are from India, and a lot of us still. So what is the process of ordering the medical records? Can you just give a brief overview of that?
Okay, yeah, sure. So from the client, we get a list of their providers. Then when it's time to move forward with the case, we fill out when the client first comes in, we have the client sign medical authorizations. So then when the time comes to order them, we finish filling it out with case-specific data, and then we email it or fax it over to the doctor's office. And then sometimes they send the records back right away. Otherwise, times they don't, so we have to follow up, call again, multiple times. That's the process. That is laborious and time-consuming, yes.
And look, that's better use for building actually a strategy for the client, right? Rather than following and does that. Absolutely, right? I see that's the way I look at the future, right? So imagine that you're working with a law firm, so you would all these luxury of having a paralegal, having an associate, having a junior, right? But the way I look at in the future that more niche and boutique law firms will be able to hire these services powered by AI, right? So even when you're just a sole lawyer or social practitioner, you would have all the advantages of the big law firm. One of the changes I predict would be going to happen in the next 5 to years, and that's why we predict that more and more solo practitioners would come out in the next 5 to 10 years. That's one of our how it does sound. Okay. So awesome. That's kind of really makes sense. So next question that I have, right? With more and more lawyers adopting generative AI in their practice, what are the ethical considerations do you feel would be coming up in the next 5 to 10 years?
Okay, ethical considerations. Now, you probably already know about this, but there was some lawyers who were fined in New York because in a memorandum that they submitted to the court were 6 cases that didn't exist. So that is a very important ethical consideration. A lot of us have talked about it, and because of it, we're even a little more leery than perhaps than we should be of AI. So, but I think we just need to double check it. We have to verify it. I think that's the key. It'd be the same thing if we hired someone to do, or an individual to do the work. We still need to double check it. But knowing about this particular situation, we especially need to double check, make sure the cases exist. And that it's not, one thing I discovered in practice early on was that sometimes the lawyer on the other side would cite a case that did not stand for the proposition he claimed it for. And sometimes it actually would stand for the opposite proposition. You could look at the other attorney's cases, cited cases, and find some you could use for yourself. So, that's not the same, but similar.
Right. Like attention is the thing. That's why we became a lawyer, right? Because we were really good at picking up the minute details, right? And just like my personal story, like when I heard that story, like when the lawyer he was actually later debarred, and that was like really to me. And that was one of the personal reasons I started the venture that I'm working on. I felt like, like nobody should be disbarred for using an AI, right? Should like this I know what happened with him wasn't. I felt it wasn't fair, right? So one of the objectives that I have, with my day job, is to making sure that we take the mundane out of the week, right? Because because I think I have ADHD, I get bored really quickly, right? When doing like the legal process. So one of the things I feel, if we can like kick out the mundane out of the legal works that we do, and make sure that we provide tools, and because of it, nobody should get this part, right? Because we need to understand, like, it's not a marketing function, right? If a lawyer screws up, we are looking at $1 billion fine, right? So we need to be cognizant of, like, what kind of job profile we are supporting, right? So that's like, you shared that story, but that's what that was one of my personal motivation for starting my venture, and I felt like this should not be happening to other lawyers. So that's the thing, right? And I completely agree. So what are you, as you said, that you're using Google for research or some other purposes. So what are your thoughts on using generative AI for legal research? Do you think it's a good idea? Especially, you need to cross check. Does that really make sense? Or like, if you end up cross checking everything, has like the AI has said, is it the AI is increasing your job rather than decreasing it?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we all need to just experiment with it, get better at it. I mean, when I first did legal research, I sucked at legal research. I really sucked. I mean, I didn't get good results, but I got feedback. I kept doing it, more practice, and with practice, I got very skilled at it. It's one of the things that now I feel like I'm very good at. Whereas when I started, I was very bad at it. So with the AI, I think we all need to experiment with it, try it out, test it, see. It looks like a potentially useful tool, but with all tools, they require practice, know-how, skill to use well.
Completely one back. One other area that a lot of lawyers are excited about is client communication. Right? So one of the things that when you're representing a client, you have to constantly keep them updated about the progress in their cases, right? So what are your thoughts on, like, just coming from a hearing and just uploading the order, and the AI is able to create the email that was supposed to send to the client, informing them as to what has happened in their case particularly. What are your thoughts on that?
That's interesting. Is there an app that can do that. I haven't actually heard of it. Is there something? Yeah.
What? Like, absolutely. Yeah. As far as my knowledge goes, we are the only one in the world who are providing such a solution, right? I guess there might be other people who are doing it, but we are doing that. But just wanted to check that, because one of the things that we hear a lot is that from loyalists that the difficulty in communicating with non-lawyer people, right? So we are talking with in-house counsel. So that's where I feel that, AI is of a great use, because the way the large language models have been designed is to communicate to a layperson. Right now, when they are being used by dollars, they say that okay, it's the AI is not. But or if they can take the complex legal stuff and make them understand for the non-layperson, that's where I think they are doing a really great job. So that's why we actually come up with this tool, and just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I like that idea because, in fact, I think I'll probably give that one a try, because it seems like it would be pretty easy to go to your artificial intelligence app and say, this is what I want to communicate to the client. Could you change this into simple language? That, I think it would be pretty easy for AI to do that, wouldn't it?
Right, exactly. Because the AI is not designed, like the majority of the content it has been trained on is not legal stuff, right? It has been designed for layperson. And now when asking it to do, it's a difficult problem to get them to do how a lawyer would say something, right? Because as a lawyer, we want to be precise. We want to speak in a way that it doesn't give us any liability whatsoever, right? But that's not how normal human beings communicate, right? So that's one of the things that we are experimenting. We didn't want to kind of plug in our product, but since you asked that is there any tool like that, I shared, but that wasn't the plan, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks a lot for coming in. But before we wrap up, one question I always like to ask is, if what advice would you give to the 20-year-old version of yourself after doing this 25 years?
What advice would I give to
young graduate? Like if you could...
a young graduate? Wow. Well, I would say keep learning. I got to a point in my career where I thought I knew most everything, and then I was suddenly surprised by some things that just somehow has escaped me over the years. So now I try to be more humble, and I attend every year. I attend a continuing education that covers basic material in my subject area, and I always learn things. And sometimes I'll attend the same seminar the same titled seminar, but there's always new things in it. So I think be humble, be open to learning new things. Don't ever get the idea that you've arrived and you can't learn more.
One. That's the line. Okay, Rex, thanks a lot for coming in.
Okay, nice to meet you.